Lloyds Auctions recently sold off the Unreil Collection, a collection of 50 of the coolest cars you're ever going to see. In there are race cars from the 70s and the 60s, including some of the most iconic cars from Australian Touring Car Championship history. There's GMP&A Toranas in there. There is a Lamborghini Aventador. There are Fords and Holdens and Valiants that have been race cars. There's police cars, you name it. This collection of cars from an unknown seller is amazing. Here's the top 10 in order of price as they sold at the auction. Coming in at number 10 is the Wayne Cullen 1977 Holden Torana LX hatch. It is one of the 33 GMP&A hatch bodies. Currently it's just a rolling shell and painted in the Marlboro livery, but back in the day it was painted in Ford Yellow Glow and competed in the 1978 and 79 Touring Car Championship, so a pretty cool car to have if you wanted that one. That sold for $315,000. If you don't know what a GMP&A shell is, there were 33 shells built by Holden specifically for racing in, I believe, the 77, 78, 79 racing seasons. There's only 33 of them made. They're lightweight. They're built specifically for racing. So for these to turn up in this condition as they are is pretty cool. There's actually 3 of them in this auction. Are there going to be 3 in the list? You'll just have to wait and see. At number 9 is a 2017 HSV GTSR W1. This is pretty much the peak of HSV goodness. It's got a 6.2 litre V8 and a 6-speed manual. It's got everything. It's a beautiful car. Not really my cup of tea, but if you gave me one, I would definitely have it. It's pretty much the last Commodore that you could ever buy with a V8. So these are pretty rare, pretty sought after. That one was actually passed in at $325,000. So whether it sold or not after the auction, we don't know, but that's all we can go on, was that $325,000 bid. You assume it went for a little bit more than that, so it may have moved up the list, but that's all we can go by. Right, number 8. Back to the old classics. A 1971 Ford Falcon XY GT Wild Violet, which sold for $335,000. It's fully restored in the late 90s. It's factory wild violet colour, and it's a genuine Subaru. It's a 351 V8 4-speed, and it's got a period correct Cleveland, so that's without the original motor. It's still sold for $335,000. I'm not really a Ford guy, but that is a beautiful car. I can understand it. That is amazing. Probably a pretty good price even without the original engine. This is probably the most hated Commodore ever, ZB Commodore, but it is a V8 supercar. It's Scott Pye's car that won at the 2018 Australian Grand Prix. If you think about it, it's a pretty rare car. How many ZB Commodores have got a V8 in them? This one looks pretty good, and I guess for $355,000, it's a pretty cheap way to get into a V8 supercar. At number 6, it's the Craven Wild HJ GTS Monaro Sports Sedan, driven by Pete Goggin back in the 70s, built by John Shepherd back in 1975. It won on debut, and it was a really competitive car. One of those iconic cars. It is the original car. It's been restored with the help of John Shepherd to make sure it was put back to original. And that sold for $355,000. Yeah, that is a really iconic Australian sports car. Before we do the top 5, if you'd like to see me do a list of all the Toranas that sold, let me know and I can do that as well. There's some pretty cool Tories in there that didn't make this list, but you might want to see them. If you want to see that, pop it in the comments and I'll make sure it happens. In position number 5 is the second 1977 Holden LX Torana GMP&A. That one was sold for $395,000. This one was owned by Bill Patterson back in 77. For use by Peter Brock, but it was never actually used. The shell was later put together with a 308 and a 4-speed and painted in this beautiful white colour, and that sold for $395,000. Not quite a Brock car, but sort of is. Obviously Brock raced with Patterson Racing in 77. He ended up going back to HCT and had a lot of success there. This shell was left over and eventually was put back on the road. Another one of those unique Australian cars. Somebody's got a bargain there. There's 33 of them total, and you know, probably 31 or 32 of them have been raced, so this one is pretty good. At number 4 is Pete Goggin's 1967 Ford Mustang. This is one of those classic Australian cars. It is a legend of the Touring Car Championship. It won the championship in 67, 68 and 69 and hardly lost a race. Pete Goggin became the first 5-time ATCC champion in this car, and it is one of the most winningest cars in Australian touring car history. It was passed in at $400,000, which isn't surprising because last time it was sold in May 2021, it went for $645,000. So there's a bit of movement there to get that done, I would say. But yep, on our list, coming in at number 4. We're into the top 3, and again, at number 3 is another sports sedan. It's the 1972 Holden HQ Monaro GTS, driven by Bob Jane and John Harvey. You can see it's still in the Bob Jane colours. It was also built by John Shepherd with the help of Pat Purcell, and they were trying to obviously take on the Moffat Mustang. It raced from 1972 to 79 and won the 1975 Sports Sedan Series. And it has a 72 spec 600 horsepower Chev 350 and a 4-speed Muncie Rock Crusher. So this is a pretty cool car. It looks great. That one was passed in at $400K. A few more dollars to go with that one. That one was actually purchased at the same time as the Pete Goggin Mustang, I believe. So, you know, maybe those two will stay together, I don't know, maybe not. Now we're getting up to the pointy end now. There's only 2 cars left in this list. At number 2 is another Torana A9X GMP&A hatch. This one was passed in at $500,000. Obviously some more negotiation to go with that one, but this one has been touted as the rarest Torana in Australia. It's only got 475 kilometres on it. I do know of one that I believe has less kilometres than that, but it's not an A9X. It's one of the 33 GMP&A hatches, and it's got a 308 and a 4-speed. And it's another one that really shouldn't exist. It was a spare shell that's been made into a road car. That was, yeah, passed in at $500,000. So I'm sure they will sell that one. Somebody needs to cough up a bit more money. But before we get to number 1, remember to put in the comments if you want to see the results of the Toranas in the auction. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would really appreciate it. If you've made it this far into the video, you obviously enjoy the stuff that I do. So just click that button. It really helps the channel to grow. Number 1, it's not an Aussie car. It's not a classic piece of motoring history. It's just a 1 of 800 SVJ Lamborghini Aventador. It's Australian delivered. I don't know how many there are in Australia, but there's only 800 in the world, so there can't be too many. This thing does 0 to 100 in 2.8 seconds, and it tops out the list at $1,385,000. And somebody snapped that up real quick. First bid, bang, done. So somebody wanted that car and they just grabbed it, and it finished number 1. That's your top 10. If you like videos about old cars, there's another one here. You can't see me, so I don't know why I'm pointing, but anyway.